Hello.
Hi, everyone.
Amazing. Cool. I think we will get going as it is 3 o'clock. So hi everyone. Happy December, first of all. Can't believe that. Can't believe it's coming to the end of the year. Excited for another episode of Demandism. We're going to actually look back on 2022 and provide some of our key lessons and learnings that we've had throughout the year. We've been doing a lot of retrospectives as we've been going through the whole planning process and budgeting and forecasting. And so we thought, why not share them all with you guys, and hopefully you'll find them interesting and can take some insights away as well. So as always, please do speak to us in the chat, send in your questions, and we'll keep it really interactive. And yeah, without further ado, we will get going. Tropical Rochester, how lovely. Hi there. Cool. So just a quick intro in case you're first-time Demandism listeners, who are the rest of the people on the panel. We've got Liam, who's Global Head of Demand Generation, and we've got Fran, who is our Head of Demand Generation. So literally got 3 DG people here hoping to, distill some insights today. Welcome, guys.
Hi.
Cool. Hi.
All right. Yeah, you're there. You came on. Okay, let's get going. So I guess where we've come from, it's always good to do a bit of a retrospective, look back on like where have we come from, and hopefully give you guys some confidence that you're in good hands when it comes to taking any advice that we share on our learnings across the year. So for anyone who hasn't really been following the Cognism journey from kind of lead gen into demand gen, this is how it's looked over the last 12 months. We began implementing demand generation probably it was around October last year where we started making the first sort of shifts, but we weren't fully fledged demand gen. And then actually it was in March of this year where we really made the decision, that's it, no more MQLs, no more content needs. We're turning off the tap on that and we're going all in on demand generation. That was in March time. And actually what you can see, and I think this is really, really good correlation in terms of understanding, has this worked? What's the impact being? Was our hypothesis of we don't actually need these content MQLs to make up for that revenue gap that we're going to lose on the content side, and we can actually create more of these direct declared intent demand demo requests through allocating that budget into other initiatives? And the answer was yes. You can see that really clearly on this chart. I think there's a tiny dip towards the end of November, but that's actually just because we're getting more efficient, and there are other factors at play, cost per CPL or leads volume is not always the best thing to be measuring, but in terms of an early indicator of success, we've seen that velocity massively increase, literally in line with our journey through this demand gen approach. So that's kind of the last 12-month picture, which is really pleasing to see. And then more importantly, how does that actually translate into things that really matter? Pipeline, and we can see it here. This is the global view across the quarters, and then also you can see a real staircasing happening when you look at it from a monthly perspective. So I'd say key takeaways here: when you're trying to deep dive, is this new approach having an impact on your revenue and your pipeline numbers? If you're a quarterly business where your reps are targeted in quarters, you're probably going to have this staircasing. So it won't look like it's just a nice line chart that happens on the global top graph where it's quarterly view. You're going to have more of a staircasing effect on the monthly view, but you really should be taking this across the quarters. That, as we can see, that chart looks really healthy as well. We're actually already at Q2 pipeline for Q4, and we've still got a whole month to go, and December is always our best month across the whole year. So very confident that Q4 is going to be closing out incredibly strongly and really put a solid end to this whole year and our whole progress against demand gen. I think also important to call out the dip in Q2. Don't panic. This happened to us. As I said, we just switched off lead gen content MQLs, and suddenly we had a dip, and it was oh my gosh, okay, but you have to stay the course. You have to stay positive. Because you can see that velocity in the direct declared intent inbounds, you know that your early signs are actually positive. So that gives you confidence to stay the course, but just be aware that this could happen at the beginning. But then you can see that velocity taking off, which wouldn't happen if we'd kept on going through the old MQL hamster wheel. So that is where we've come from, the success that we've had through this year. So like, I guess, how did we do it? Like, it's all very well showcasing the numbers and showing the nice charts, but how can you actually kind of take the steps to do this? And like, what are the biggest learnings that we've had from it that you can take away and start implementing? So this is like a massive one. And I think going into 23, it's really important that people kind of up level their content to the next level. And this is about creating content for the channel. So I think we had a really good I think for our stage, we had a really good content engine to begin with, and we were very good at repurposing content. So we would have a Demandism episode like this, and then as a matter of course, we'd have a checklist of what we would do post that event, which would be taking clips straight from that Demandism content. That would then get added into our paid social, and we'll talk about how that would be structured, like how that used to be structured back in the day, and then how it's structured today. But there was much less thought about it. And there was much less thought about where that content sat within like an overall narrative or levels of, like content levels as well. And also ultimately the worst thing about it was it wasn't tailored for the channel. So it's not a great viewing experience. There were like some of our heads bobbing around and then slides. And yeah, we basically weren't getting the most value from that content. So while we were doing a good job of like getting lots of different pieces of content out there and taking some of our best performing content and like reusing it, we weren't really doing as good a job as we could do. And we were aware of this. So what have we now done? Like, how have we pivoted? And we're really going to double down on this going into next year. So we still grab the best snippets from a live like this, but we re-record them for the specific channels, which is really important. So go away slides, just like talking head video, clear subtitles, and then we really tailor the creative around the channel and we create a much better experience for the viewer. So this means that like that zero-click content, maximum consumption, engagement from our audience, all of these things happen, and we've seen huge increases in metrics across the board around this by taking this new approach. So we know it's definitely the way to go, and it's something that we're going to be doubling down on next year. And kind of wish we knew when we'd focused on at the beginning, but we still, I think, you learn and you develop, and we've got a lot out there, and now we just have a much more refined process and much more structure around it, and ultimately better results, which is what we want. So, and also I think this is a really good, important reminder that this isn't just about our paid social example. Like, content repurposing across channels is actually I'd say it's probably not quite becoming the norm yet in B2B marketing. But if you want to get the edge and stay ahead of your competition and be like pushing the boundaries of what great looks like, then you do need to tailor your approach to every channel. It's not one size fits all. So really understand what works on the channels that are important to you and where your audience are hanging out, and then make sure that you're creating content in that format for them. It takes a bit more work, but ultimately it's really worth, like, the juice is worth the squeeze. Cool, so enough of me. I'm going to hand over to you, Liam. And this is all about how we've structured our paid accounts.
Yep. Hi, everyone. So when we obviously started off and moved into this sort of demand generation strategy back in October last year is when we really started sort of like planning it out and acting on it. We had to we had to start by ungating everything, but slowly you realize that you can't just go into your ad accounts and just ungate all the content that you've got that we were running for lead gen and that sort of work in the demand gen way. You've kind of got to restructure everything that you've done and like rethink your approach right down from I suppose not like all the content that you're putting out there and like exactly what content and who you're and like at what point you're targeting everyone as well. So when we were running like a lead gen strategy, we had everything split out on geography. And then actually what we would do is for a lot of the lead gen ads, we would actually just break it down on like popular sort of pieces of content, because we'd obviously just writing these sort of ebooks and written content as well. So we'd have like a whole campaign on LinkedIn about cold calling with loads of cold calling white papers and ebooks. We'd have or like objection handling in there, and then we'd have some on cadences and we would, or like then we'd have like a few different ones on marketing as well. So it might be like being data driven, or another set on like ABM. But actually, when we sort of ungated everything, we realized that, well, you can't just like put out everything as like ebooks again. We need to sort of like diversify the content. So then we needed to have campaigns based on, like with video. We also wanted like carousel ads. We also wanted like static ads and stuff. So all of that had to change. And then also at the beginning, we hadn't like fully transitioned away from lead gen. So we had some which we would then be ungated, which we'd call our awareness campaigns. Then we'd have like these lead generation campaigns still running. And then we'd have what underneath we'd have like our performance campaign, which is like stuff that's like we're directly asking for a demo. And at first as well, we were, as we sort of switched this over, we didn't serve everything to the entire audience at once. We thought like, oh, we'll restructure our content so we have like top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel, and then everyone who engages with top of funnel will retarget with middle of funnel, and then everyone who engages that will retarget with bottom funnel. But then we kind of realized that you can't have no one knows what anyone really is in the buying cycle, so we're actually limiting our content by doing that. And people who have seen, who's to say just because they've engaged with a top of funnel ad that they're now ready to see middle of funnel, but also who's to say that they're not ready to see bottom of funnel at any one time. So all of this we sort of had to rethink, and we all had to. So it's like, to start, we just had to think about all of the new content we needed to create, whether that's like doing more video, carousels, other web-based like content, pushing to ungated blogs, and how we can level up the blogs as well, so like they're not just text and we've got video in them, and sort of move away from just promoting ebooks, and also plan about how we could reach all of our ICP at once. So that means all the decision makers, all of the individual contributors, and what content we could create for each of those different types of personas. So it's like a big load of work that we needed to do on the accounts. On top of that, we didn't want to make it too complicated, because me talking about this now, it just sounds extremely complicated, and it could easily become so. So we need to feel like a simple structure that would allow us to fulfill all these needs, but at the same time was something that was manageable, and we weren't just going to be completely bogged down. So therefore, our old version of what we did, where we based campaigns based on the type of content, would have just got absolutely hectic as we made more and more of it. So what did we do? We moved into we started by creating buckets, really. So there are 5 main types of bucket that we have, and they sit across regions and personas. So our account will be broken down into, for example, for us, UK, US, DAC. And then within that, you've got sales, marketing, and we started to do some work as well with RevOps. And then each of those personas then broken down into your individual contributors versus your decision makers. And then we have buckets across those. So thought leadership is, as it is, like all of the next, thought leadership in that space, real point of view about where we're going, where we're moving, top level stuff that's sort of like the guiding conversation and maybe marketing or sales. And that bucket is like primarily with the objective of reach, although you could have it for an objective traffic as well. It does depend on the content that you're putting out. On that
one, I think it's quite interesting to talk about. So we've had that thought leadership, which is why the diagram is a bit outdated, because we literally just didn't we have this leadership offsite the other day, and we just got stuck on this. We were like, why is thought leadership only reach? And we realized that what happened is we were overinflating the amount of content that went into the content bucket, because that content was suited to a traffic objective because it was driving people to a destination. And so that meant that even though the topic was much more suited to a thought leadership piece, it was being chucked into content, and then our content being inflated, and thought leadership was kind of underperforming and didn't have much in it. So we've altered that. We've said, okay, we're going to try this. We're actually going to have the option for the demand gen pods to be able to brief in ads for paid social, which are traffic if that is how the content is meant to be consumed. And so it comes back to this mindset of like, it's not, we don't ever want to just be doing this because that's how it's done. We want to be doing it because that's what makes sense for the consumption of that content. Is going to match that content's engagement with the audience. So I think that's just like, if you're looking at this and you're like, why? That was one thing where we really thought through that process and kind of made a change.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And you've got these buckets for a reason, right? Because each different type of content provides like your buyer with like different information that they'll need. So you don't want to like limit yourself that thought leadership content and then needs to all be video so that you've got reach, or it's all got to be able to exist in an ad that they can view in feed, because you're not going to use the traffic objective where they might go to a longer form piece on your website. And then content is like further removed than thought leadership because it's closer to your product, so it's more like a dotted line. So like here, for example, we put we have lots of things about cold calling, which is a very you can get lots of direct dials in Cognism. We have that whole topic as like a dotted line to our product. It's much more practical and really helpful to the audience and less sort of top level and overarching. And then we have social proof and product value. So product value is like all of the bottom of funnel content about your product and exactly what your product does. And we push this out through like quite often a reach objective, so people can consume information about our products in feed, and then we can remarket to the people that interact. So this gives us a new layer of a way of like increasing frequency and meeting these people who are interested in the product. And social proof runs on the same sort of premise, but providing social proof about the product. Something we always thought, and I've said, like, as B2C do social proof really well. You don't get the same always in B2B, but people buy from others and they want to know whether a vendor's good up front, and they trust other consumers and people in their community. So pushing out social proof is a great way of achieving that. And then we have what are traditional performance campaigns that are based around like obviously getting a demo, but we've mixed this up. We've got loads of different ways that we go and achieve that and actually provide value in feed. So probably if you follow us on Beamy Targets, you've probably seen some of our videos where we're talking to camera and explaining a little bit about the product at the same time as people coming through, like offering the chance to get a demo through us as well. So then that's basically how we split it out. And now when we think about everything that we're doing in activity, we can think about these buckets and how we're going to populate them, and which content will go where, and what we need to, when we come to analyzing the account as well, we can break down to the buckets and look exactly what's like which bits are struggling and what bits we need more content for. So it gives us a real clear structure of how to run it essentially.
Amazing, cool. Now on to I'm just going to answer those questions in the chat. Mm-hmm. It's easier to address them there. But lesson 3 with Fran, which is testing new ideas and experiments. This is a good section. There's a lot in here to unpack. So
amazing. Did you want to answer the questions, or are you going to do it in chat?
I'm just going to do it in chat because I think it's probably easier.
Okay. I was thinking CPM could be frequency as well, but I'll write something after. So I will dive into our lesson 3, so testing new ideas and experiments. So something that we talked a lot about doing this year, and we finally got around to it, was a direct mail campaign. So we found it was a great way to amplify your message. Now, I think this is something that everyone can agree, like, really can often fall to the bottom of the list and can become something that's deprioritized over those always on actions that marketers do. So for us, we really wanted to think of a way to activate our message in a different way. We decided to prioritize this because it was just giving another voice on, like, sharing our voice, amplifying our voice, like, on a different channel. So I guess for us, the important thing was that I know as a marketer, I've sent direct mails out in the past and they haven't really had a lot of meaning behind them. So the important thing for us was that this was tied into a message. This was tied into a campaign and a narrative that we were already putting out there. So for us, we gave our audience an opportunity to claim a free t-shirt, which was tied very closely into our B2B marketing doesn't have to be boring campaign. And then we invited our audience to share this across social, and then they'd enter into a competition. So the fact that it was tied, like, into that strong narrative already ensured that it resonated, and we had a lot of other assets as well that were already built around it. I think, what we saw is we had so much engagement around this particular campaign, and it was the opportunity for our message to be amplified on social, because we were asking those who participated to share it. So we'd say that this is something that we want to double down on next year, focusing on other ways to action, use different channels to kind of action these campaigns that we're running. So has been very effective. But yeah, the one takeaway for us is it's definitely had to tie back into something, tie back into a campaign, align with your business, align with the narrative that you've currently got at the moment. I think I was talking to our CEO at an event last week, and he receives things in the mail all the time, but it might just be a cupcake or something with no meaning, and it's not overly memorable, but the ones that have really packed a punch are the ones that directly tie into pain points or narratives and key campaign messages. So that's one idea that we've tested. Secondly, just go back. We really wanted to focus on testing a strong point of view in our campaigns. So we wanted to think of stories that resonated with our core persona and launch something that had a strong narrative throughout. The reason for this is because we didn't just kind of want to put loads of content out there and kind of spray and pray and just hope that the message would stick. We really wanted to think about telling, a story that resonated, but something that had a clear creative direction, so it stood out. It's present not just on paid social, but on multiple channels. So for our B2B Boring campaign, that was another reason why we did the t-shirt, the direct mail t-shirt campaign, because we wanted to activate the message across different channels other than paid social. But then it did tie back into that, because the people who entered the competition did share their story on LinkedIn afterwards. Also, I think we wanted to explore different content formats as well. So we focused a lot more, you can see the video here of Alice, we focused more on higher quality videos. We looked at different ways to approach our ads, different ways in which we could be creative, with the things that we're putting out there. And also on top of that, Liam has spoken about our content buckets that we have running. So we've got the content, the thought leadership, the product, and the social proof. So here it's really important that we were producing content that aligned with those themes and aligned with those buckets. So we weren't just creating one type of content throughout the campaign. For us, that's been really successful, not only in the results. So it's driven. So one of the campaigns that we spent a lot of time on was the B2B Boring campaign, and having the strong point of view around this. It's not only driven pipeline and revenue, but essentially the qualitative feedback as well that we've had from it has been really strong. We've had great feedback on the creative and how the creative is standing out, and also just in general how much is resonated with the audience. So it definitely makes sense to take that time to do your research and think of something that will absolutely resonate. Another idea is the influencer ads. So I think we've shared about this quite a bit, but they've been our best performing content ads ever. So the click-through rates, engagement rates were absolutely off the charts. We're a bit nervous, I guess, about doing it at first, because it is a native screenshot. We didn't want to be seen to tricking anyone. But actually, what we found is it worked really well for providing this top of funnel value in the demand gen engine. And actually, the large majority of feedback that we got from it was people were really excited by it, because it's something that they hadn't seen in feed before, and they were, it was kind of a clever way to, I guess, to catch people's attention almost. But it did have that paid budget behind it. So ads, we've written here, ads that don't look like ads often work the best, and we've certainly found this. So I would suggest people definitely give it a try. I think recommendations are that we do have to have that really strong hook, and it has to be really value led. That's something that I would say has definitely stopped the scroll in feed. And then Liam did a fabulous presentation last week at an event on how we're using subject matter experts. So I'm going to let him take over and just do these last couple of slides.
Yeah, sure. So I think something that's been a massive success this year that we just weren't really doing last year at all, is making use of influencers, and that's both people that are external to Cognism that we have we work on a contract basis with as an influencer, and then building our own personal profiles within Cognism and raising people within the business to make influencers out of them as well. So I think to create an influencer, or what is an influencer in B2B, is you need to have one, the following, so that's the personal brand element, and two, you've got to have the subject matter expert element, and one or the other isn't an influencer. If you've just got a huge personal brand, but but you're not really a subject matter expert or anything, you're just a celebrity. So that, that will happen. You'll get something out of that. You'll get some reach out of it. And if you've got the subject matter expert without the following, then yeah, you're probably a traditional subject matter expert who's contributing to blogs and just on a few webinars, but you're not creating a community around who you are. So to create an influencer, you need both of those two things. And I think that's where you can really start to move the needle and make a difference in the content you put out. So and in that, I'd say, like, and I've written here, influencers therefore provide you, if they have those two things, with authority to your content. A lot of content in B2B kind of sucks because it's been just written by a content marketer out there, but they don't maybe necessarily have much of authority on the topic themselves. They're just writing and producing the content. Not to say that it's not going to be well written, but people want to listen from people that they respect and believe and have like some sort of like admiration for. A good influencer should have a unique point of view as well, so they should be able to present that, and people, like, they're predictable. People know what they'll say to something, they know what they think, they know what they believe. This is what helps, like, build a following. They'll also deliver the content in easy consumable formats, and be sort of interested in, like, creating different types of content, not just maybe like contributing in the back end, like I'll have like a ghostwriter like write for them or something like that. A good influencer will be producing like video and all this sort of stuff. And then they will interact with your audience as well, creating like sort of like a human face to your brand. So like if you think like, for example, Chris Walker at Fine Labs, like, he goes around and he's constantly interacting with the audience on LinkedIn as well. And that's part of it. So it's like that they are directly contactable, directly easy to reach out to and speak about anything that people are interested in, but also potentially relating to your brand as well. And in all of that and doing all of that, they then act as a catalyst on dark social, right? So people maybe start tagging them for their opinion, asking them about certain things, or like referencing them on social in different on different threads and channels. So Ryan, straight ahead with the cap on, he was our he's been influencing for us for this entire year, and like I said, like, obviously we've built up our own profiles. For example, we've got Dave who heads up our sales development team. We've been building up his profile. We've been building up our own profiles here for the marketing persona. But Ryan is a self-professed lifetime SDR who loves cold calling, doesn't work for Cognism. He runs his own business and is a author as well. But what we have done is we've worked with Ryan and contracted with him to get out for him to become a subject matter expert and influencer for Cognism and promote us as well with all of his expertise at the same time. So I will go into exactly what that looks like. So, oh, this jumps, sorry. So I might be of interest to people then. So what do we mean by like contracting like an external person to be like an influencer for us? So you can actually get it like down into what we do is to discuss this, is to have different, like, literally itemize some of the activity that we want to achieve and have, so that you can have that in the agreement right down to like YouTube series, webinars, video snippets, whether they host a podcast, which Ryan does for us as well, like how many blogs they should contribute for, like if they can turn up to events, newsletters, whether they write for those, which Ryan does for us as well. And like how many posts we can get out via their channel, and whether they're happy to for us to like hijack, take over the channel and post with them as well, which we've had like varying levels of access to Ryan's channel as we have over this year. And then like whether they like, you know, announce their relationship with us as well and have like wear all the merch and stuff like that. And you can detail all of this down so that you have like a set number of deliverables that you want to achieve with them each month and then quarter, to really sort of like push and scale that SME or that influencer content. I think obviously you can work with people, you can get subject matter experts on your webinars and content and stuff, and you work people for free. But one of the keys to making this work is volume and scale and producing enough content with them that you can actually make it, you can actually grow it. And I think the only way to get that to work is to really like hone that down to what that activity looks like and having like an agreed output between you. Obviously, we've scaled this further now. We work with Morgan Ingram as well, which you might have seen. We do a huge amount of content with him, which has been great. We've also got Gaetano Donardi on the marketing side, who's been working with us as well. So you can continue to grow and expand it, because after all, these won't last forever. These agreements won't last forever. Sometimes you might find that they then want to leave and move on. So you need to find new avenues for creating this content. But all is not lost if people leave, because you would have had all this content that you've created over time, which is actually the most valuable thing. Also, you would have been able to influence their community, which they absolutely love them, for like as long a period of time as you're working with them, to really like push out your brand. So yeah, it's not really whether they leave or not, it's not really an issue, but you do want to always have someone out there to help influence the audience and provide that content for you. So I think then I hand back over.
Yeah, I'm going to pop us on to Fran, who has been spearheading pretty exciting stuff that we're doing on the content side of things. I know there's been a few questions about it in chat, so this is now the time to get your answers. So I'll hand over to Fran.
Great. Right, well, if I can answer everybody.
Maybe start with the problem we were trying to solve with this. I think that's quite interesting, because I'm sure it will be familiar with a lot of people, that problem.
Yeah. So I guess for us, we made the demand gen shift, and we were investing a lot in the demand gen team and kind of like where we were going to go with it. One of the biggest pain points for me especially was content. So we had a lot of content, a lot of blog posts. We'd started doing live episodes, but we kind of weren't really sure what demand gen content really meant. We didn't know what it meant to us. We didn't know kind of what to do with it in regards to how we'd structure it. So I think you'll probably remember, anyone who is an avid listener, is we spoke quite a lot about it was really important to have content execs who sit on the demand gen team. So we made that switch, and we got some great content execs to sit on the team that I was heading up. Now, it was fine, and what we found we were doing is just kind of just doing what we'd always done and just start writing blog posts like every week, and we had a few videos layered on top. So it was clear that we had a problem, and the problem was what does it mean to be like a content executive on a demand gen team within this new demand gen strategy? So that is something that we've been trying to work out, and we've made some good progress. So I'm going to share that with you guys now. We have actually been working with Abed Durrani and Todd Klauser. I think you guys probably have heard of them before, and we've working closely with them right now to help us to put in a real framework that we could stick to, so we can actually execute on content, like effective content, but actually do that at scale. So this is our focus for 2023. Please drop your questions in the chat, and I'm sure we've got time to answer them at the end anyway. So we've kind of put this structure together and worked with Todd and Abed on this. So we've split it up into 3 different types. So we now understand that there are 3 types of content that you can put out in this demand gen framework. So type 1, we refer to as insightful substance. So an example of that could be me talking to camera and giving some actionable insights, and that going on LinkedIn. So basically like a talking head video. And we've got loads of that, and you've probably seen loads of that around. Type 2 is insightful substance. So again, like being providing this like really actionable advice, but actually delivered through an interesting format. So an example of type 2 could be we did a paid swipe file. So we did a paid ad swipe file, which consisted of all our best performing paid ads. So the insightful substance is it explains every single bucket, so exactly how it's set up, exactly how it works, and shows the performance of the ads and the best creatives. And the interesting format is actually the Trello swipe file. So instead of putting it on a landing page or putting it like, I don't know, in a PDF or something like that, or talking through it on a video, we actually ended up coming up with something that was a little bit more engaging. So that was, for us, that's a type 2, right? So it's insightful, but it's in an interesting format. And then there's type 3, which is insightful substance delivered through an interesting format, but also built on an entertaining concept. So that's a bit of a mouthful, but the entertaining concept is really, it's this thinking about your content from a bottom up evangelistic kind of way. So we want to we want to be memorable, and we want our audience to engage with us. But it could be just be in a really entertaining and funny way, and we don't want to be scared to like push the boundaries. So here, I don't know if you guys have seen, but it could be sort of like, so Todd Clouser does a lot of B2B marketing skits. Lavender Joe, it's a great example of doing these like adverts, which are just really kind of a bit more like experiential, like they're really entertaining, but they're still important, and they're still informative, and they still have a dotted line back to the product and back to exactly what they do. So yeah, they're the three types. And I guess as well, we have to really think about sort of the work required versus like, you know, like the payoff at the end. So it's really important to prioritize these. So for example, we know we have a lot of type 1. We know we want to double down and invest in type 2 and type 3 next year. But you have to be really strong on, sometimes the team have loads of amazing ideas, but you can't action them all at once. So you have to pick the best ideas, double down on it, and really think about which idea is going to pay off the most.
Or you have an annoying CMO.
Or you have an annoying CMO who sends you ideas all the time and wants them done the next day.
I'm on a ban, aren't I? I'm on a ban until Q.
I'm just kidding, but you you do actually have, all the ideas are great, which is the most annoying thing because we can't action them all at once. But yeah, no, we love that. So lots of ideation around that. So yeah, we're kind of this is the stage we're at. I think Alice is going to go more into, on the next few slides, around just what we mean by a point of view and how this kind of looks from a more strategic point of view. However, we do have a sneak peek of our type 3 piece of content, and we'd love feedback on it. So this type 3, so remember, type 3 is informative, and it's in an interesting way, done in an interesting way, and it's entertaining. So we've had to tick all of those pillars. Now,
let's have a go. I'm going to give it a go.
How do we do this?
Why the is middle finger emoji at competitor.com making its way through to my sales team as an MQL?
Have you ever been questioned by sales about the quality of your leads? That's because they don't know how to hit goal, and you do. Ignore them. Let them complain. It's not your job to close deals. It's your job to provide phone numbers and email addresses. Do you get to spend 3 nights at the Four Seasons if they close your MQL? I didn't think so. I've been running marketing teams for 31 years. And I've developed a system for making even the most incompetent marketing teams appear effective. It's called lead gen. And in this course, I'm going to show you how to get promoted as a marketer without ever driving any business results for your company. You will learn how to drive leads, regardless of their intent or if they will ever close.
You send us the same leads every week because they opened your email like it's some prize. I already told you. We called them several times and they're in a contract.
You'll learn how to deny responsibility when questioned in front of leadership. The skills taught in this class could very well save your job. I'm the worst marketer in the world, and this is Masterclass.
Okay guys, so what do we think? I know sales are breathing down our necks at the moment. I really think this guy can help us out with lead volume. So what do you think? Should we give him a go?
It's not my problem if sales can close. Let's do it.
But it was his problem. 2 months after implementing what he learned in this masterclass, Liam was brought in front of the executive leadership team to explain why none of marketing's leads were closing. After trying to place the blame on sales' ability to close, Liam was fired and is now suing the worst marketer in the world for false advertising. Jamie became the first marketer in company history to be put on a PIP for recommending the plan, and has now been moved into an SDR role where he has to call every marketing lead from the past 6 months. He has yet to set a meeting.
We did it.
We did it. I guess we didn't give much context around that. So for the context, so as part of our narrative around making the shift from lead gen to demand gen, and all fits in with our story around B2B marketing doesn't have to be boring, and that marketers should be moving away from this approach of like collecting leads. So this was our stab at type 3. So all feedback's welcome because we haven't done this before. So and you'll be seeing it on socials a lot very soon.
This is my farewell demandism, guys. So
I was going to say, yeah, Liam's up after this. Jamie is, out cold calling all those leads. Cool, amazing. Now this is the bit I think like some of you are interested in as well, because you've been mentioning it in the chat. So it's like, okay, how many of these strategic narratives and unique point of views should you have? And how should you build it out? So this is like a really, really useful framework, and one that we've been working on we're kind of working on right now. We're firming it up in Q4, but we'll already be rolling it out early next year. So we're just having a big focus on creating this strategic narrative. There's one strategic narrative that actually binds together all of our content and messaging across all of the personas that we target. So right now we really focus on sales and marketing, but we are also going to be expanding out into the ops side of things. And again, this one strategic narrative will just sit across all of those. And so how are we going to do this? So we started off by really trying to identify a relevant shift that's happening in the world of like B2B marketing and sales, so revenue. And then we want to take a point of view on that, about what's needed to win in that shift. And then we're going to be building out the content topics and messaging around these point of views. So the beauty of this is that we already had like quite a lot of what we call these sparks that sit under these unique point of views as like content ideas or individual content assets, but we had no like structural framework for ideating and producing more and more of these in a structured way and a process, and that in a way that also tied back to one strategic narrative and unique point of view. And it wasn't like a clear thread. So while we were very good at a lot of sparks content, I guess, we didn't have the other two layers to this, which have really, really, really helped us when it comes to planning out and creating a process around this continual content delivery. And that was like this huge blocker that we had with things. So yeah, I think, and then a really important thing as well, the narrative should fuel a need that has a dotted line back to what we do as a business and sales intelligence. That's important. So you need to be thinking about that when you're building that strategic narrative. But yeah, so ultimately this has been a real unlock for us when it comes to structuring that content piece. And this is how we're looking at it going into 23. And we'll share more on it as well in Demandism episodes in 23 as we build it out. So what are other lessons that we learned? I thought what are we looking for into 2023? So we've now got to a point where we're running this new paid ads social structure on LinkedIn. But again, with this, like, and this is a really important thing that you need to remember, that with like this whole shift into demand generation, there is no one dashboard, there is no one report that will show you whether you're being successful. You need to get comfortable looking at lots of different reports, lots of different dashboards, lots of different metrics and drawing conclusions. And yes, you want to see correlations in the top line goals, which are pipeline revenue, direct declared intent inbounds. But there's a lot underneath it that you need as early leading indicators to see if you're being successful. So under the hood of our paid social stuff was like, okay, we're running all this stuff on LinkedIn. We've got these new buckets. We feel like we're leveling up our content. But like, what is the driving process and thought behind like when we should be updating those buckets, when the team should be looking to refresh ad creative and copy. Like, what is that process look like? And how do we create something that's like scalable for us going forward? So we've been running this now for like 6 months. We have enough data through our tracking that we can draw some conclusions on what the max frequency should be for a successful campaign, and to give us the best metrics, and also the maximum number of ads within that bucket to deliver the best metrics. And so from there, we've been able to set ourselves some guardrails. These guardrails now inform a process around which we have created with the demand gen pod of like, this is when stuff needs refreshing. So if you're nearing that frequency cap, or you don't have enough ads in the bucket, well, the ads like pieces, you have too many ads in the bucket, then you're not meeting the key KPIs that we set, we know that are needed for us to be successful. And obviously we'll continue to review these metrics and see if they hold true, and if they alter, we'll change them. But for right now, like, this is our kind of playbook on what's needed in each of the buckets, and that's a massive step forward for us going into 23. And now the process behind that, by which like the content then gets refreshed, updated and created, is the next step. So yeah, we'll be working more on that in 23. You can see here, these are our benchmarks though, I'd say. So like, hopefully they might be interesting to you guys as just some benchmark, but just be wary that it's for our account and it's very much for our audiences. And then we have similar situation, and from a reporting perspective is like, I wanted to get into a flow of like understanding what's the Spark content that's really driving the best engagement and the best like interactions with our audiences. And we needed to get into a process of reporting on that like very regularly, and then also using that to inform further sparks and content ideas within the new framework that we've produced. So again, a firmer playback and on this reporting using our UTM analysis. Our amazing new global head of paid runs this for us, and we have these deep dives into this type of insight to understand like what it is from that content spark perspective that's really resonating with our audience in each of the buckets. So we can see in marketing, this whole topic of lead gen versus demand gen, which you guys might all be sick of hearing, is really popular. And then 3 years of scaling, which is kind of this is a thought leadership piece. It's kind of me as a CMO, a first-time CMO, scaling at the startup, now scale up, like, and what my experiences have been. And then we know that like G2 reviews are doing really well for us. And actually, interestingly, the ABM use case of all of the use cases of Cognism for marketers is the one that seems to be resonating the most. So that's the kind of insights that's super helpful and can inform how you go about the process of updating those buckets when you see that you're reaching those caps that you need, which inform you to go through that process, if that makes sense. I have just waffled there, so sorry about that. And I think that's everything, isn't it? I can't believe it. We've managed to get through a Demandism and we have 10 minutes to go, but we have. It's almost like we're already halfway, half a foot in the door for Christmas. I think we probably have answered all your questions throughout. So again, obviously, if you have any that you want to answer now, pop them in the chat while we're here and you've got us. Otherwise, hopefully it was a good session. We'll be sharing the slides and recording as always. And don't forget, there is that Facebook group where you can access them probably most easily, and you can obviously search them and ask us further questions, etc. throughout. But yeah, if not, I will let everyone go and take a bit more time back. Sean, what's the size and structure of our team? So from the Cognism team size and the demand gen, Fran, maybe you go through your demand gen team structure and size.
Yeah, I can go through this. So Cognism side of, so my team, we have, I head up the demand gen, and then we have 2 demand gen managers either side, and they focus on our 2 core personas, which are sales and marketing. And then we have 2 marketing execs that sit with our demand gen managers. And then we also have, at the moment, just 1 content exec that sits on the sales side. And we hope next year to get another content exec that can sit on the marketing side. So that's how we approach it. And I would say that structure, I know that it's not always possible. Teams in other companies could be a lot smaller, but I'd say really just having that focus on 1 core persona has been really valuable for us. And
having that content person sit in that demand gen team, I think, is the other big unlock.
Definitely, especially now we've got this framework, which I'm sure we're going to be talking a lot about next year.
Yeah, definitely. And then, do we write thought leadership content for your CEO, senior leaders for LinkedIn? If so, what's the process there? So not for the CEO, but to be honest, like that's not really a core ICP buyer for us, or like target. So that wouldn't really be something we would do. But when it comes to the content for Dave Bentham, who is one of our SMEs within the org, the way we approach it is to have interviews with him where the team will like ask him questions, present their ideas on content, like the content that they think we could talk about, topics, and then just get Dave to chat. And then from there, they build the content off those. And so that means that it's like so easy for Dave. All he has to do is like take the content. If he wants to do a small edit, he can, and then he just has to go and post it. So you just want to make it as friction-free as possible.
Yeah. I would say as well that the reason why you wouldn't want to just write it for them and not do a process where it's still their knowledge, is it just won't be authentic. And like authenticity is the biggest thing that will like make a post win or create a profile on LinkedIn. People will see through straight away if it's just someone else speaking for them. Yeah,
definitely. I think we've put that DG content role is on the Facebook group. So search that or look for it in the documents on the Facebook group. And if you're not already part of it, go to Demandism and on Facebook and join the group. But it's on there. But do feel free to chat on the group if you can't find it. How often do you create campaigns? Maybe I missed it. So this is an interesting one. We've had a process around campaigns. Okay, well then you don't have Facebook, so we will where would you like us to share it with you? Maybe just
you can just send it on LinkedIn, or I can just send the link now if it will work.
Yeah, if you can do it.
Here's the link. If that works, let me know. If it doesn't, I'll send it to you on LinkedIn. Let's connect.
Amazing. What's the question? Yeah, campaigns. So maybe I'll give you the floor, Fran, because you've had the grey hairs on this.
So we came up with a very shiny new approach to campaigns and how can we run them. And I spent a long time on the structure. It was, we were going to run them every 6 to 8 weeks. That was kind of the thing. And we'd come up with a topic and we'd be like, right, we're going to speak about this topic for 6 to 8 weeks. We're going to run that campaign and we're going to stop, start, or continue it after this 6 to 8 weeks. I think because we didn't really know how it was going to play out, it was probably, the thought process was probably a little bit over-engineered now looking back. And what we found was we ran a campaign on the sales side, which didn't do quite as well as we'd hoped. But then we did on a campaign on the marketing side, which was B2B marketing, doesn't have to be boring, and it exceeded like all expectations. And since we've actually been working on a new framework, we've come to the conclusion that instead of running these, like we called them spotlight campaigns, what we actually want to do is spend time working on a strong point of view. And the content is actually driven by that as opposed to these like isolated campaigns. So the B2B boring narrative the B2B boring spark actually rolls into a strong point of view. And it's something that we continue to do and that's always on. So I would say my advice now would be, if I was doing this again, I would actually work within this framework in regards to what's the overall narrative, what are the strong points of view we want to convey, what types of content fit, what kind of topics fit within those points of view, and then how can we activate this? And it's almost like, and what's the payoff of doing that? So how much resource does it take to activate a type 1 versus a type 3? And once you kind of start thinking about that and working within that framework, it becomes a lot easier instead of putting all your eggs in one basket into an isolated spotlight campaign and like hoping that it works.
And then also it goes back to that whole mindset shift of like always on to everyone all the time, rather than like why only 6 to 8 weeks? Today, when we think back to it, we just picked that right time frame. We were like, then we might continue it. And the thing was, the B2B boring campaign kept resonating, so we kept it on, and we were like, this is an always on narrative now. So you kind of got both sides of the coin. You've got this other campaign that flopped. Sorry, Tim. It didn't flop. It was really good, but it just didn't take off in the same way as the boring campaign. And we had yeah, and anyway, that some of that was really not anyone's fault, but and then at the same time we had this other campaign which we were like, well, why would we ever turn this off? And so it became like an always on piece that was just, we just happened to have this spark that was like really resonating with our audience. And so, yeah, I think going forward, we're now going to really minimize the risk of any campaign flopping ever, because we're not going to really have campaigns, but we'll have these sparks. And then we'll just like double down on the ones that are really resonating in the same way we have with the boring campaign. And therefore, you kind of mitigate that risk. So I think that's how we're thinking about it. And I think it's going to be much more successful.
Definitely. And I think the key element that was missing was the point of view, the strong point of view in the first place. And I think if you start with that, then creating the content becomes much easier, as opposed to just trying to come up with what did I always call them? Themes. So yeah, hope that answers it.
Okay, I think we've done all the questions now. We've worked out job spec's going to have to be delivered through LinkedIn, and for everyone else, if you do want it, it is on Facebook in the docs section. So amazing. Thanks guys for another great episode, and thank you everyone for listening, and probably see you in the new year now.
Yeah. Can you say Merry Christmas yet? Is it too early?
I don't know. I feel like it's just
have a great Christmas, everyone.